Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Perpetual Wealth Code webinar. This webinar covers everything that you need to know about the Perpetual Wealth Code, either to get started or be more successful implementing the Perpetual Wealth Code. My name is Ben McFie, and I'm proud to have my dad, Dr. Tomas McFie, who is the founder and developer of the Perpetual Wealth Code, on the line today to share with all of you how it works for individuals, families, professionals, and businesses. We have clients all over the U.S. who are using the Perpetual Wealth Code to do things that they never would have thought possible, to keep their cash flow high and to invest in themselves, their business, and the things that they do. In addition to that, we're also delighted to have one of our clients, friends, a strong advocate of what we do, a very successful entrepreneur, author, speaker, out of Florida with us. His name is Dustin Mathews. Dustin, would you say a few words?
Yes, absolutely. I'm really excited for this, and for those of you joining us from the Speaking Empire community, I want to welcome you here. The McFies have been a longtime member of the community, and I'm really excited for today's topic. And the reason why is I've seen a lot of shooting stars in our business able to go out and create lots of wealth. And the challenge is I've also seen a lot of people that at the end of it, towards the later part of their career, they really have nothing other than great stories. And so I recognize that early on in this industry. And so today is a very, very important conversation. If you want to do your passion and also at the same time create a legacy and create a way for you to, really enjoy the later years of your life. And so, number one, and I'll be quiet, guys, because I know you got to dive in. Number one is there's great valuable information. I'm personally a client and subscribe to what's going to be talked about here today and using it in my family. And then number two, if you're part of the Speaking Empire community joining us, the other thing that you could be doing is watching how the McFies present, specifically Dr. Tom here, how he presents and his process for getting people excited and really building value for folks and getting them to take the next step in their career. And so that's the one thing I want to say before we get rocking and rolling.
Well, thank you, Dustin. And you know what you said about shooting stars there, that's something that we appreciate about working with you. You said that as long as I can remember, that there's a lot of people who've made it big and then gone out. They haven't been able to keep any of what they make. And that's really where we specialize, and your recognition of that, I'm sure, is why you employ these concepts yourself and why you recommend them. So, Dad, please take over and share with everybody what you prepared for them. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this opportunity too, because for most of my life, people told me you can't be wealthy because if you pursue wealth, then you're going to lose your health, or if you pursue wealth, you're going to lose your happiness. And so I find it really fascinating that in the Middle English, the word well, these are the words we get from it: happiness, prosperity, and well-being, which are happiness, wealth, and health. So I think that somewhere along the line, people got their wires crossed about what health, wealth, and happiness really are. And hopefully this is going to clarify that. I couldn't help but think today, I was scanning through the headlines, and a baseball player who had earned $53 million in his career is filing for bankruptcy today. That's really, really sad, because we all have the ability to become very wealthy, but those of us that do become wealthy often don't stay at the top for very long. And so this will give us the tools that we need to not only get wealthy, but to stay wealthy, happy, and healthy at the same time. When I was a kid, Ben and Dustin, I used to listen to LP records, and that kind of puts me in an age group that maybe a lot of people in this audience aren't in. But I remember listening to Archie Bunker, and for those of you that aren't familiar with Archie Bunker, which probably everybody is, he was hilarious. And he was at a meeting one time, and a fellow comes up to him and he says, "Hey man, is your name Archie Bunker?" And Archie says, "Well, naturally I know that much." He says, "Well, were you in New York last July?" And Archie says, "Well, hang on just a second. I carry this little black book with me, and it tells me every place I've been, things I've done, people I've met, and the things I've had expenses with." He says, New York, that would be under P for places. Yes, I was in New York last July. And so the fellow says, well, did you happen to meet a girl named Ruth? And Archie says, well, that would come under C for contacts. And yes, met a girl named Ruth. He says, well, did you happen to take Ruth to dinner? And Archie looks under E for expenses, and he says, ah, yes, took Ruth to dinner. Well, the fellow says, did you take Ruth to her hotel room, and did you kiss her goodnight? And he says, well, that would come under P for pleasure. He says, yes, it says kissed Ruth goodnight. He says, well, listen here, Archie. I happen to be Ruth's husband, and I don't like it. And Archie says, well, now that would come under O for opinions. And it says right here, I didn't like it either. Now, I tell that story because we have the same data, we have the same conclusions, different emotions, and different outcomes. So what I want to ask you today is, would you like to see a proven way that will multiply your savings, increase your opportunities, expand your returns, permit you to avoid unnecessary taxation, and allow you to keep more of the money that you make? And I've never met anybody that has said no to any of those. So my promise to you is that in the next 55 minutes or less, you're going to discover some things about money that 99% of CPAs, tax attorneys, and financial advisors will not share with you, whether they know it or whether they don't. And that's not my opinion. That comes from Newsmax Financial, who says that 99% of financial advisors deserve to lose their jobs, March 29th, 2017. You see, here's the scoop. As an American, you have the likelihood of becoming part of the 1% in your lifetime. In fact, it's a 1 out of 9 chance. The problem is there's other things that are happening. 70% of Americans lost money in 2015, and 2016 was the worst start ever recorded in history for investors, according to Money CNN. And that means if you lost 10%, you're going to have to earn 11% to recover it. If you lost 25%, you'll need 33% to recover it. If you lost 50, you're going to have to earn back 100. And if you lost more than 80, like most people did in 2007, 2008, you're going to have to earn back 500% just to break even. Now, statistically, 95% of most portfolios are subject to huge short-term losses. If you look at the market history, we have had, on an average, a crash of about 8 to 10 years, and most people lose about 42% in those crashes. That is just insane. Obviously, traditional financial maze is extremely expensive to navigate, as we can see from the casualties, and you simply cannot afford to make costly mistakes. And just so that you're aware of it, if you don't get to keep your reinvested and reinvest your money, the industry doesn't really care. And that's not my words, that's Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, the mutual fund manager. So, more importantly, I think it's essential for us to realize that becoming and remaining wealthy has more to do with our emotions than it does economics. I have clients in Detroit that are making $1 million plus a year, and 3 blocks over, we've got someone that says, you just can't make it in Detroit this year. It's not about what the economy is doing. There's never been a shortness of money. There's never been a shortness of value or ideas. As you entrepreneurs know, it's always about what we're thinking about, what we're feeling about. And John Maynard Keynes understood this, and he was basically the father of our economic system that we practice in the United States today. Emotionally, how stable can you be when by the time you retire, the market will have crashed on you 3 times? And as we have all learned way back in 3rd grade, Warren Buffett says, that no matter what kind of returns and impressive results you get, multiply it by 0, and things just evaporate. Now, the other problem is that debt has grown 15% faster than income on average since 2003. 9% of the average income today is spent on interest. That's incredible. Federal income taxes will take an average of 19.8% of every dollar you earn, and on top of that, state, local, and sales tax will add another 9 to 21% depending on what state and locality you live in. This means that 37 to 50% of what you earn is going to be lost to interest and taxation. And if we can just get a percentage of that back for you, how much more wealthy could you be, and what would your golden years look like different than they look like today? Well, we've been surrounded by a lot of lies and deception and just false data. And in reality, a 40% cost in investing and working consume about 40% of the market's nominal return. But there's more. Cost and taxes are taken out each year in nominal dollars, but value reflect real spendable dollars. In an environment of a 3% inflation, which is roughly about where we hold in the United States, that 40% turns into a 57% loss. And over a long term, like a 50-year lifetime investment, 98% of what we thought would be ours has vanished into thin air. Again, those facts aren't mine. Those facts are John Bogle's, and I've seen Steve Forbes and other people project numbers very, very close to this. When you do the math, it's incredible how much we earn is lost due to interest, inflation, taxes, penalties, and fees. Let's look at actual versus average. Here's where people often misconstrue what is possible to do with their money. They're looking at average rates of return, and averages are just averages, but it's only the actual that we get to keep. Take a look at this actual return on a Roth IRA that came across our office. It looks like they're making a 5.4% rate of return when actually they're only making a little over 2%. This isn't my numbers, this came off a statement that came through our office. Traditional financial planning is failing you. Cash flow is what it's focused on. And cash flow, according to Investopedia, is the net amount of cash and cash equivalents moving in and out of your life. Increasing cash flow does not increase people's measurable happiness, according to the 2010 study at Princeton. Traditional financial planning is based on you retiring someday, not continued living. And everybody wants to continue living, whether you change your occupation or what you do at retirement age or not. It's not like we just want to roll over and retire, because when you retire, a pair of shoes, you throw them away. We don't want to be thrown away. We want to continue to function and live. Warren Buffett says, in addition, traditional financial planning, the sales capabilities of people trying to sell you high-cost, low-return investments grows exponentially as your wealth grows. And so when we do start to make more money and accumulate more wealth, we become targets of the industry. And so Warren Buffett was very well aware of this, and that's why he started mutual funds in the first place. If you want to be happier, wealthier, and healthier, determine to become your own money manager. Doing so allows you to increase your free cash flow. Now, free cash flow is completely different than cash flow. Free cash flow, according to Investopedia, is the measure of financial performance. Free cash flow is the money you have left after spending the money required to maintain your current cash flow. That means it's money that you got left over after everything's said in the day. And that is really, really what we want to look at when we're looking at building wealth. Free cash flow lends itself significantly to increased happiness, according to the Michigan State University study of 2015, which we'll look at here in just a little bit. And as your own money manager, it is easily possible to reduce both investment costs and taxes, almost to the vanishing point, if you so desire, according to Jack Bogle. This is exciting. By the way, if you haven't read Jack Bogle's book, Don't Count on It, I highly recommend it to you. It was an honor for him to send me his own personal autographed copy, and he told me in a note, pay special attention to chapter 2, 6, and 22. So that's Jack Bogle's book, Don't Count on It. Facts regarding good money management and happiness. This is the 2015 Michigan State University study that we said we'd look at closer. Purchasing assets and experiences instead of things increases happiness. That's cool. Spending time and money on others generates more happy than splurging on yourself. Worrying about money destroys your ability to enjoy its benefits, and lending money affords you more happiness than hoarding it. And folks, many people believe that savings money is something different than it is. When I talk to people all around the country, and I talk to hundreds of them every year, one-on-one, many people believe that their savings account is what's going to get them through their golden years. But really what they're doing is hoarding it, and hoarding gets destroyed by inflation. Other people think that their savings is investing, and they don't realize that an investment, by definition, has the risk of losing 100%. And so we have those people losing, 42% every time the market corrects, like we looked at earlier, or even worse, like in 2008, where many people lost 80% or more of their life savings because it was invested rather than saved. And we're going to talk about that. This fellow, the Nobel laureate for economics, a professor at Yale at economics, says Americans save 40 years of their life and they earn a 0% rate of return on it. Schiller's solution for this dilemma is to discipline yourself and save more money. But the fact is, saving money in America has become a liability because of inflation, because of interest cost, because of taxes, and because of fees and penalties. I was a chiropractor by trade, and I realized shortly after I got my chiropractic degree that I needed to get more education. So I went back to school and I became a PhD as well as a doctor of chiropractic. And over the 20-some years that I've practiced, never did my education or my practice teach me the things that I want to share with you about money. This is something that happened to me because I was involved in a robbery where someone broke into our house and totally devastated the inside of our house and left the things that you can never replace. And when you start getting things taken from you that can never be replaced, you start reevaluating what wealth really is. You can't replace the security of your little kid sleeping in the bedroom next to the window who after the robbery wouldn't even get close to the window. You can never recover from that. It takes time. And so even though I was very well educated, nobody taught me these things. And so I wanted to share with you 3 things today that will produce prosperity, well-being, and happiness in your life. We call them the 3 Ds. They're desire, determination, and discipline. Now, desire comes from the Latin Deo Sire, which means God fathered. I have never met anybody that wants to be poorer. Everybody wants to be better off, more well-to-do, have more money, because that's what God put in our heart when we were made. The second word for the 3 Ds is determination. Determination comes from the word that means to make a choice or decide. And the word side, we see it in suicide and homicide, means to kill something. Okay? We have to kill something that we're doing right now in order for us to do something different. In fact is, we could add a 4th D to this that I just read in Jim Rohn's book recently, and it's called disgust. Unless I get disgusted enough with where I am right now and what's happening in my life, I will never make a choice to do something different. Okay? So the final thing is discipline. And discipline kind of sounds ugly because we associate it with punishment. But if we look at the French definition of discipline, it means to gain knowledge. And that's what I had. I was searching for knowledge, going to school and getting 2 doctorate degrees and a master's and everything, but they weren't teaching me what I needed to know. And so when I learned this, I realized I have to share this with other people because everybody needs to have the opportunity to hear this message so that they can make a choice, so that they can fill the desire that was put in them when they were born. You know, I can't remember who said it. He says, but most people go to their grave with their music still in them. And I don't want your music to still be left inside you, struggling to understand how to become more happy, prosperous, and have your health at the same time. So we want to help you turn your savings into an asset instead of a liability. An asset is an economic resource, tangible or intangible, that can be owned or controlled to produce value. So in order to do that, our savings has to be experiencing tax-deferred growth. We have to know that when we put it in, the first dollar we put in can be the first dollar we take out without having to pay taxes on it. We have to know that we're going to get competitive yields and be able to put as much money in as we want to. We want it to be safe, naturally, and in order to be safe, it has to have guarantees. And we don't want any penalties and fees that are going to eat up our profits, like Robert Schiller says. And we want flexible terms if we have to dip into our savings so that we can pay it back on our own terms, maybe instead of the terms of a third-party agreement. Finally, we want to participate in the profits of whoever our savings is with. And finally, we want to hedge against inflation because inflation is the insidious occult taxation that destroys money that isn't at work. All of these we discuss in my book, Prescription for Wealth, in Chapter 6, and that book is free to you as a PDF download if you would like to access that later on. And here's the big surprise that I found out, and nearly everybody I talk to is shocked at this, and that is that where we save is not where most people tell us to save. But of course, we've already looked at the failure of traditional financial planning, and that's why it's such a surprise for people. Ed Slott, in Retirement Roadmap 2010, said this: in these volatile and uncertain times, you need to have investments that give you control, options, flexibility, certainty, and you want to remove both stock market risk and tax risk. And you want a guarantee, and you want it all tax-free. And he chuckles and he says, that's a tall order, but you can get all of that with certain types of permanent life insurance. There's the YouTube. You can more than welcome to watch that. It's a great, great little YouTube. And this is exactly what I learned way back in 2005 after we were robbed. Okay? But life insurance, people always say, whoa, you know, that's the worst investment you could make. That's what I was told when I was 24, and that's why I never purchased permanent life insurance. If I would have known the difference now, between now and when I was 24, my life would have been a completely different story. Warren Buffett, in his 2004 shareholders note, says that if he would have bought life insurance instead of Berkshire Hathaway, that his net worth would be 200 times greater today than it is. It's very fascinating. So what we need to do is we need to look at a closer look at life insurance. There's several different types of life insurance. There's term, and under term we have renewable, level, and premium reimbursement insurance. Then there's universal. Universal life is called permanent life insurance, but in my opinion that's mislabeled. We have interest earning universal life, we have equity invested universal life, and we have index mirroring universal life. But each of these products in universal life is just a term product that has a premium that has to go up every year. And so what happens in universal life products is that the guaranteed values, one of the things that we're looking for in a good savings vehicle is guarantee and safety, disappears when we get older because the cost of the insurance gets prohibitively high. Finally, there's whole life. There's non-participating whole life and participating whole life. Remember, one of the key things about dividends is about savings is we want to share in dividends. We want to share in the profits of the insurance company, and so we want a participating policy. We want it to be whole life, and we want to be able to control it and have the use of that money. And that's what Ed Slott was saying. Certain types of life insurance meet this criteria. We put all these together, these 10 things, we put them on a scale, and then we look at where people save money, their 401k, IRA, SEP, mutual funds, Roth, margin accounts, bonds, CDs, real estate, universal life insurance, or participating whole life insurance. There's only one of them that gets 9 out of 10 of those. And it really gets 9.5 out of 10 of those because the growth in the life insurance policy grows tax deferred. It's just that you can't defer the contribution of the premium payment. And so, not that any of these other areas are bad, but why settle for 1.5 when you can have 9.5? Why settle for 4.5 when you can have 9.5 out of all those things together? And the key is you don't have to do either or. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, because an either or mentality is not a wealth mentality. It's a poverty mentality. Creating free cash flow and the Perpetual Wealth Co. I discuss in Prescription for Wealth, Chapter 7, which you, like I said, you can have that PDF for a free download. Here was my life before I understood the Perpetual Wealth Co. and the power of participating in life insurance. My buddies were the red people, and they would borrow money and they would pay it off, and they would end up at zero. They'd borrow money again and pay it off and it'd be up at zero. They had a lot of things, no money. I was the other way. I was taught by my parents who survived the Great Depression never to pay credit for anything, always to pay cash. And so I would save my money up and then I would buy it, whether it was a house, whether it was a car, whether it was my college education. I never went in debt. I always paid cash for things. And guess what? I ended up exactly where my buddies were. It makes no difference. This is a zero-sum game. This is the game that traditional financial planners, CPAs, and the financial gurus want you to play. It doesn't work. I know. I tried it until I was 45. When I understood the Perpetual Wealth Code and began to save up and leverage my savings, then I could continue to earn the compounding growth on my savings. And as I paid it back, I built, and the gold blocks here are what happened. And what over time takes place is that you get an exponential curve of growth. That's perpetual wealth. That is free cash flow too, by the way. Free cash flow is where the rubber meets the road, according to the Harvard Business Review. Having access to quick money and managing it well will permit you to consistently and significantly produce free cash flow faster and more abundantly than you can increase your profits. Let me prove my point. This is Harvard Business Review, 2014, Amazon.com. Amazon is a brilliant example of how free cash flow works. In fact, that's where I first understood free cash flow, reading Jeff Bezos' shareholder notes. Notice that his operating cash flow is the top blue line, and his free cash flow creeps up there, and then it drops all of a sudden. And then it starts growing again in 2012. The free cash flow gives Jeff Bezos the opportunity to go in and cash out other entrepreneurial endeavors or to improve his own investments, whether it's buying the rocket industry that he's involved in or whether he's buying up, Whole Foods like we saw here just recently. This has been his profit margins. Nothing really to write home about, okay? But Jeff Bezos shares over and over again in his shareholder notes that Amazon.com is not about profit margins. It's about free cash flow. Free cash flow allows him to drop $13.7 billion of cash onto Whole Foods when they were struggling. And, that's $42, 27% higher than the share was being traded on the open market at the time. Now, fascinatingly enough, John Mackey, CEO of Whole Foods, called the investor greedy because they took They wanted this offer. But when we look at Whole Foods, they're charging 15 to 40% more for the same product compared to other supermarkets like Kroger's, Wiegand's, Safeway, Sprouts, or even Trader Joe's. And you know, this is exactly what I discovered when I started using the Perpetual Wealth Code. I was teaching a group of CPAs in Seattle, Washington, about this concept. And one CPA at the end of the day raises his hand and he says, well, why would you want to teach your clients that? All they would have is more money to spend. Because he couldn't understand why anybody would want more money, because you know the average CPA today makes somewhere around between $60,000 and $100,000, because that's about the volume of people they can serve without hiring assistants. And you hire assistants and now you've got more expenses, and so their profits margins go down. So they become almost greedy. I found in my life, as my income has gone up and my wealth has gone up, we've had to switch who's preparing our taxes, because these guys just can't handle someone making a lot of money. And that's really sad. So not that they're bad people, it's just that it's beyond their ability to fathom. So there's a right way and there's a wrong way. Traditional financial planning is steering people the wrong way. Perpetual Wealth Code is steering people in the right way. Let's take a look at this for a second. If we are putting $12,000 a year into an investment and you're earning 6%, but the fees and the cost on that are 2%, then that means at the end of 30 years you'll end up with about $699,267. Tahowever, on a 2% fee, you're going to lose $177,000 of it right off the top. Then what you're going to have left, you're going to pay taxes on if it was in a qualified plan for you to use in your retirement years. Or you can put that same amount of money in a participating whole life insurance policy and have $687,000 to use in your retirement tax-free, plus you're leaving over $1.3 million for the people you love in this life, okay, in a death benefit. Traditional financial planning, like I talked about earlier, is an either-or proposition. You can save the money or you can spend it. You can have the vacation or you can have the money. You can have the new car or the money, or you can have that new business or the money. It's neither I want the money and the business, I want the car and the money, I want the vacation and the money. But the wealthy always think both. They think, how can I have this vacation and how can I have the money too? Or how can I buy that new building and have the money too? Or how can I have the savings and earn the return on it and use my money for another investment at the same time? And that's what we do with the Perpetual Wealth Code. Let's take a look at an example here. If you have $50,000 and you're earning 2% on it in some CD, and you cash in your CD and you buy something, then over the next 10 years, you're going to lose $1,060 of interest. Plus, you don't have your $50,000 anymore because you spent it. If it goes 15 years, then your loss is $17,000. 20 years, it's $24,000. 40 years, you've lost $61,000 by spending your own money. That was very hard for me to learn because I saved up money to spend it, to buy things. Now, traditional planning says, well, you could also borrow money, okay? And if you borrow money and you even you borrow that $50,000 to make a purchase and you pay it back over 10 years at 4%, you actually lose less money that way than if you spent your own money that was earning 2%. And after, of course, the first 10 years, the loan's paid off, so there's no more pain on if you borrowed money. And so my life was living on the center column instead of the right-hand column. But when we think about the Perpetual Wealth Code, we got to think about both. And so it's not about having either or. So let's take a look at this more closely. Over the 10-year period of time, if I could keep my 2% earnings and only pay 4%, but if I was the person I was borrowing the money from and could pay that 4% back to myself, well, traditional planners would say, well, that's only a 2.8% difference. That's not a whole lot. but it's a huge lot if we can keep them combined. This is the mindset that Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and everybody that practices the Perpetual Wealth Code has. If I have an expense, if I can self-finance it, I get the return of my money, plus I get the interest. Now, Will Rogers once said he didn't really care how much return he got on his money. All he was concerned about the return of his money. And this is really crucial here, because we want you to keep your $50,000 while doing this, and that's key. Now, the common error that we frequently hear from people that can't think beyond traditional financial planning is, I can earn a higher rate of return. So here we're going to look at an actual investment and the return on their 1040 tax return. So this was the dividends they earned. This was their capital gains. Total income from the investment, $57.38. Management fees and expenses, $17.87. State and federal taxes, $15.16. Total taxes and fees, $3,300. They lost 57% of what they thought they were earning, and that came from an actual individual's tax return of 2015. So who else is doing this? That's really important, because some people say, well, this is too good to be true. If everyone knew this, everyone would be doing it. Well, there's a lot of people that are doing it, and this is one of them. It's the Executive Branch Personal Public Financial Disclosure Report of Joe Biden, our former Vice President. In this, he is owning not one, not two, but 6 participating whole life insurance policies from MassMutual. And not only that, he's had loans out against them since 1983, and he's paying 5 to 8% back to the insurance company for those loans. Now, why in the world would he want to be paying that kind of interest when you can get interest today for under 3% easily? Well, there's a key to that. We'll talk about it in a little bit. Who else is doing this? Well, NBC Universal Studios pays $506,000 annually to purchase whole life insurance on their CEO. They also spend a lot more money, as you can see, on other members of their employment, because they understand the importance of owning cash value life insurance. Banks are another group of people that are doing this a lot. This is the 2004 statement that we saw. $149 billion of money is being spent to buy bank-owned life insurance, because they're borrowing from their savings, the policy, the life insurance policy, to finance other asset purchases in their life. Finally, this is kind of interesting. Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia used this concept to start an endowment for their college. So when the founder of the school died, he left $34 million of legacy, of death benefit, in the policies that he had bought to benefit his university. And so with that, Liberty University became a non-debt, they became out of debt, and they also were able to start a huge endowment, which is one of the biggest endowments now of private colleges on the East Coast. In fact, the institution has done so well that the founder's son now is a private counselor to the United States president. Now, there's other people that are doing this, and that are just more of your common, ordinary people like myself. And Dustin, not that you're common at all, but I know that you're doing this. Would you care to comment just a minute about what you're doing with your participating whole life insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I'm doing is putting a plan, or following the plan that you guys have put together for me. And what we're doing is we're starting to save up so that we can actually draw and use and grow what you've talked about here. And so we've started a policy, and with the birth of our recent one, Mama was talking about another one as our how do I want to say it, Tom, without giving all the details away, but basically we're about to enter into a new period where our payment into the policy will be a lot less, and so now we have essentially the ability to buy another policy and just keep stacking on policies, at which you've described to me as a way to really start to build wealth.
It really is, Dustin. And when we design these policies that we sell, we want to make sure that we follow two rules. Number one, we want it to be affordable for our clients, because if it's not affordable, people can't do it. And so it's designed individually, specifically around your affordability. The second thing is it has to be comfortable. If it's not comfortable, then people won't do it. And so what you're talking about there when the premium starts going down is that has to do with your affordability and comfort zone levels. That also gives you the opportunity then, if things are going well financially in your life, then you get to add to the system. So I always like to think of McDonald's and other franchise businesses. They don't typically build a second story on their restaurants, do they? They usually go down. They usually go down the block, maybe 2 or 3 blocks, and they buy another piece of property, and they start another franchise there, because they know they can make more money with 2 franchises than one stacked on top of the other. And so that's kind of what we're doing when we talk about building more policies. But it's got to be affordable and comfortable to make that happen. The Perpetual Wealth Code is the most powerful asset that you can own and control to produce prosperity, well-being, and happiness. Assets are resources which can have an economic value that can be owned and controlled by an individual corporation or even a country. But assets owned and controlled always increase your net worth, always. And so the Perpetual Wealth Code is the asset that you can own and control. And in so doing, will increase your happiness, well-being, and prosperity, because it's done in the right way. There's no angst or anxiety that's generated from it. Here are 7 benefits that are derived when you own and use the Perpetual Wealth Code. Number 1, it will provide you with quick, easy access to capital. Number 2, it'll act as a hedge for you against inflation. Number 3, it's going to help you avoid paying unnecessary taxes. It's going to permit you to recover interest on money leveraged. It's going to reduce your constant need to acquire new money. And 6, it's going to equip you to build and control even more assets. And 7, it lends itself to making you more self-sustaining, which in this day and age we all should be looking at. So in a nutshell, the Perpetual Wealth Code guarantees tax-free growth, guarantees access to your capital on demand, guarantees your own managerial right to capital without paying fees or penalties, guarantees safety and growth of your equity. And that all adds up, folks, to winning your financial game, which, in my opinion, is going to help you to have the happiness that you're really looking for, the wealth, and it's not going to compromise your health. So if all the Perpetual Wealth Code did for you was to protect you from the market, or shield you assets from a lawsuit, or create a tax-free savings account for you, recover the cost of a vacation or a wedding, help you keep more of the money you make, or simply recover your cost of interest, what would it be worth to you? And that's the question. What would it be worth to you to do all of this and more? Harnessing the power of the Perpetual Wealth Code multiplies your savings without tightening your budget. It's going to create free cash flow by allowing you to become your own creditor. It's going to grow your wealth via smart money management versus assuming risk. It's going to give you a financial advantage by making you think in percent instead of dollars and cents. And it's going to expand your actual, not your average rate of return. It's going to enlarge your capacity to gain assets instead of assuming liabilities. It's going to allow you to keep both your money and the asset you purchase with your money. And that is critical. The Perpetual Wealth overcomes the emotions associated with savings more, generating free cash flow, smart money management, legal tax avoidance, and multiplying your wealth. Our guarantee to you today and always is we won't pick your pocket for you to discover how the Perpetual Wealth Code can work for you. And Ben, you can tell them exactly how they can do that. Not only the PDF free copy of Prescription for Wealth, but some other things as well.
Yes, exactly. And some of the people on this call have your book on the way in the mail to them. And I think that's excellent because when you get the physical book nowadays, there's a much higher chance of reading it because PDFs get lost on people's computers, but yes, it's available to them. So some of you on this webinar are wondering at this point, well, this sounds great, but will it work for me? Or this sounds great, but I have some debt I'm working on paying off, or maybe I need to save some more money first, or maybe I need to purchase the building that I need, or start to save for my children's education before I think about doing this. Here's what we do for people that are wondering those same things. We offer a 45-minute personal strategy session, we call it. It's a good meeting format like this, so it doesn't matter where in the U.S. you are. We have clients in, I think, all 50 states, if not very close to that. So we're used to working over the web, and what we do is we sit down with you over the phone, and we just find out where are you at right now, what are your financial goals, some of your numbers, so that we know what it is you're trying to achieve. And then at that point, we study the information that you give us, and then we show you what it would look like if you use the Perpetual Wealth Code. We show you how it could get you from where you are now to where you're wanting to be. And then at the end of that meeting, you make the decision if it's right for you and your family. Does this make sense for me? Does this make sense for my family? And the answer is either yes or no. Now, I will tell you something. We do not charge for the strategy session. What we will do, though, is when we find out your numbers, there's one requirement. You have to be making money, and if you're not saving anything right now, you have to be willing to learn to save. So if you're not saving, we will be challenging you to save. If you're okay with both of those things, then we would be happy to schedule a strategy session with you and provide that 1-hour appointment free of charge. So if that's something you'd like to look into more, give our office a call right after this webinar. The number is 702-660-7000. And I've told everybody here at the office that people will be coming in from this webinar. When you call in, if you just wouldn't mind letting them know that Dustin invited you, if you received your invitation to this webinar from Dustin, that would be fantastic. And they will take good care of you, ask you some questions about your financial goals, and get that appointment scheduled for you. We've got a live event coming up here in Las Vegas later in the year, October, and that's if you're somebody that likes to attend events, that is something that you might like to ask about when you call. Otherwise, ask for the book Prescription for Wealth on PDF if you want a copy of that, and make sure that you let them know that you would just like some more information about the Perpetual Wealth Code and an opportunity to see if it would work for you. The number again for all of you on here, 702-660-7000. And Dustin, I appreciate you taking some time out to be present on this webinar and for inviting some of the people you thought would enjoy it as well. Do you have any closing comments for them?
Yeah, I would just challenge everyone to, take action. So you've been given the phone number. There's no web link or anything like that, and I can tell you that the McFies aren't going to chase you. They're more magnetic, and so when you feel right, you call. But I'll tell you this: is I waited, and I was the one behind the scenes helping them write their presentation and working with them on their marketing. And so I just waited and waited, and what I come to realize after going through the process and working with them now is I just basically delayed, the inevitable, because we all know that we need to do something. And also too, I lost out on opportunity to just start the process now. And so I'll tell you this as well as, my experience with McFies is that, when you call them, you can decide not to move forward, and they're not going to make you feel bad about it. They're going to deliver true value. So if you're sitting here right now on this webinar, or just sitting here and you don't have a plan, and I mean a plan greater than just putting money away, but actually growing that money, then I would just challenge you to do it. And I'm big on this, and the reason why is I've just seen so many members, not only of Speaking Empires community, but just in this world of information marketing and speaking and changing lives, that it's sort of the thing that gets left last because we're so passionate about doing and transforming lives, and it's the thing that we ought to do first. And so again, I just want to challenge folks to take action and not wait, because 10 years can pass and you can be sitting in the same spot. And I know that from experience, and Dr. Tom knows that as well, and that's why he's so passionate and fired up and speaks all around the country and goes on cruises and has the whole family involved in it. And so you can tell they're really passionate about this. And so I just want to challenge everyone on that's even remotely interested just to go through the process and get value and really consider, making a difference in your life, and it starts today.
Well, and you really hit the nail on the head, Dustin. That's the one complaint we do get from people is I wish I would have started sooner. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you save people a lot of regret by encouraging them to start now. So for all of you on here, if you didn't get that phone number yet, it's 702-660-7000. I let everybody at the office know that you'll be calling in after the webinar. And if you need to get in touch with us by email, if you don't have one of our emails, Dustin does, so feel free to reach out to anybody at Speaking Empire. They're great people there, and they'll help you get what you need.
Absolutely. One last thing I'll chime in here and just jump in is I know that some people, like, I don't want to be on a call because I don't want to waste their time, or I'm not sure if I'm the right fit. I would just say this, just call and at least get the PDF or get the book. I would say get the book because the PDF will end up lost on your hard drive. That's just me. But at least take that next step to figuring out what your plan's going to be. And even if it's more of a passive, reading a book and getting familiar with it, I completely understand. So at least do that at a minimum.
Well, that's good. Any closing thoughts, Dad?
Well, Ben, it's always a pleasure to share this message because this message changes people's lives forever.
It does.
And that's really what we're here for, is to help other people. And the more value we can give to them, like Zig Ziglar said, the more we're going to get what we want in life. And this message is so valuable, and the Perpetual Wealth Code is so critical to helping people keep more of the money they make. And like we said right at the very get-go, it's not really a problem to make money, but to keep it and keep it perpetually working for you is incredible. And the more money that we have, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the more people we can help, and that's why we do what we do.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Well, thank you for the presentation. It was excellent. And Dustin, I know you're a busy person. Thank you for taking time to be with us today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. And for all of you on the webinar, thank you for being here. We would love the opportunity to serve you if it's a good fit. So call the office, and we'll go from there. Take care. God bless.